Electronic Arts, aka EA, has confirmed that Dragon Age the Veilguard missed sales expectations by nearly 50%. Roll this up over at phantompulse.com. You can find the link in the description below. Encourage you head on over there, become a paid subscriber, and help support us bringing you articles like this every single day. We are fully reader funded. So, in a press release, EA detailed that much of its business underperformed, including its live services, where it noted it projects a mid-single-digit decline after previously anticipating a mid-single-digit growth for their third quarter. Next, it noted its global football division, which I think is referring to what was formerly FIFA, now they're calling it FC, experienced a slowdown as early momentum in the fiscal third quarter did not sustain through to the end. As a result, EA revises its outlook for global football to end the fiscal year down mid-single digit at the midpoint of the new outlook. Finally, it shared that Dragon Age the Veilguard missed expectations by nearly 50%. The press release said, separately, Dragon Age engaged approximately 1.5 million players during the quarter, down nearly 50% from the company's expectations. So obviously, we are assuming here that they're talking about Dragon Age the Veilguard, given that is the game that released, but I do find it interesting that they don't actually say the Veilguard. They just say Dragon Age. So that makes one wonder if they're including back sales for Origins, for Inquisition, for Dragon Age 2 within that 1.5 million player number. And the numbers for Veilguard are actually even lower than that because they had to include all of those other games. I do find that interesting that they don't use Veilguard there. They just use Dragon Age. Now, obviously, maybe they're just assuming people are going to assume it's Veilguard, but they didn't. They didn't use the Veilguard. They just used the overall name of the franchise, Dragon Age. So, regardless, that is absolutely terrible. Missing sales expectations by 50%, only 1.5 million players during the quarter. And anyone who was paying attention to this saw this coming, right? We knew that it only hit, 89,000 peak concurrent over on Steam. It did not look good at all. All the kind of factors going into it were basically what we saw with Star Wars Outlaws. CEO Andrew Wilson EA CEO Andrew Wilson was talking about how it had so much breakout potential and they were seeing such positive things. And we heard the same thing from Yves Guillemot over at Ubisoft regarding Star Wars Outlaws. And then what ended up happening, Ubisoft comes out and says that sales were softer than expected, and then it underperformed sales expectations. We didn't actually get a number from them. They never told us what it was. There was a rumor from Insider Gaming that it did $1 million in its first month. So it looks like it almost did about the same. If we assume that 1.5 million number here is the actual Veilguard sales number and not just the overall Dragon Age franchise. So probably around the same number of sales as Star Wars Outlaws. Both these games, utter disasters. Interestingly, they say that the expectations were down 50%. That means they were only expecting maybe around 3 million sales. And obviously that's the first quarter, the first 3 months that the game is out in release. So maybe they were expecting more later on, but we know from Ubisoft Ubisoft Assassin's Creed executive producer Mark Alexis Cote that these big AAA games have to sell somewhere between 8 to 12 million copies in order to be a success or at least break even. So the fact that they're saying that it only needed 3 million to hit their expectations almost seems like that number is low as well. And I think that kind of shows that this 1.5 is really, really bad. Maybe they're expecting that to have some kind of long tail to get to that 8 million to 12 million mark, but I don't expect that to happen given the fact that you're already missing expectations by 50% in just the first quarter that it had been released. So given all of this, EA announced it was reducing its expected net bookings to $2.215 billion for the third quarter and between a range of $7 billion and $7.15 billion for the entire 2025 fiscal year. It also shared its net revenue for this third quarter will likely come in at $1.883 billion. In the company's Q2 fiscal year 25 results press release, it had predicted it would have net bookings between $2.4 billion and $2.55 billion. So remember now, they're saying they're expecting $2.215 billion. So that is decline of 8%, 8% from the high end to what they're saying now, from 2.55. As for its yearly forecast, it had previously noted it would be between 7.5 billion and 7.8 billion, and now we're looking at 7 billion and 7.15 billion. So that is 6.7% reduction on the low end, and then 8.3% on the higher end. So those are significant reductions there in revenue and our net bookings. I guess we're talking about net bookings. EA previously expected net revenue to be between 1.875 billion and 2.025 billion. So now you see they're thinking it's going to be 1.883 billion. So also not even within the range. Didn't even hit the range that they thought it was going to be, less than 1.875 billion. Or I guess actually no, it's still in that range, just barely. 1.883 is just barely in that range there, just slightly above 1.875. So as I said, none of this is really surprising. We did get some comments from EA CEO Andrew Wilson as well. He said, during Q3, we continue to deliver high-quality games and experiences across our portfolio. However, Dragon Age and EA Sports FC 25 underperformed our net bookings expectations. So, again, similar comments to what we saw from Ubisoft CEO Yves Guillemot. What I found interesting here, too, is Wilson went on to note the company was attempting to salvage FC 25, but made no mention of future plans for Dragon Age Nord's developer BioWare. He went on and said this month, our teams delivered a comprehensive gameplay refresh in addition to our annual Team of the Year update in FC 25. Positive player feedback and early results are encouraging. We remain confident in our long-term strategy and expect a return to growth in fiscal year 26 as we execute against our pipeline. So I find that interesting, right? They did talk about trying to salvage FC 25, but make no mention of Dragon Age nor its developer BioWare. And I think this kind of is in line with what we saw earlier, or I guess last year now, because we're in 2025 now. But early on, after the game released, there was a report, I think it was from Rolling Stone, where they said that they were moving basically all of the Dragon Age people to Mass Effect. They were putting all of their focus on Mass Effect moving forward, and they would not be releasing any kind of DLC or expansion, or really providing any kind of support updates for the Veilguard, which indicated that they saw the game as a loser in the first place, right? They weren't expecting it to do really well, as they were already kind of refocusing on to Mass Effect. What's interesting is that we did get this update also recently. This came from Dragon Age the Veilguard executive producer Mark Dara. Now, obviously, if you know Dara, I think he left mid-production on Dragon Age the Veilguard, but he still received that executive producer credit. But he recently shared a video where he says that people within BioWare, employees within BioWare, are being relocated by EA to other studios. So EA is moving people out of BioWare to other studios. And Dara said this: people who worked on Dragon Age the Veilguard, some of them are moving over to Mass Effect, but some of them are moving into other parts of the EA organization because Mass Effect isn't ready for them. So, and he goes on to note, I didn't include it in this article. I have another article up on the site if you want to check that out, where I go into more detail about what Mark Dara says. But he says that that the game is just not ready to have 250 to 300 employees working on it. And this is a change in EA's strategy when it comes to, or a BioWare strategy. Usually they're just moving on to the next project. They have multiple projects on at the same time, so people are always working on something. And now that is changing. They are literally moving people out of BioWare to other companies, other studios within the EA ecosystem. That is a really negative sign to me about BioWare, that they're moving people out. And we've also seen some top people leave the company as well. Andrew Bush, the game director, who pretends to be a woman, he left. And we also had, I forget what her name is right now off the top of my head, but they also had one of their senior writers who had been with the company for 15 years. She left as well last year. So I expect there will probably be more people leaving as well, because they see that this is a sinking ship, and this is just another sign that this ship, this BioWare ship is indeed sinking, as EA is literally moving people from BioWare to other studios. So they'll probably be looking for other work outside of EA, outside of BioWare, potentially as well. Because that's usually what happens. People see the signs and they jump ship because they see that it's going down, and they want to be safe and secure and find something where they can continue to have work, continue to provide for themselves and their families. But let me know what you guys make of this. Let me know in the comments below. Remember to always be charitable and to always speak the truth. And remember, everything woke turns to crap. This is just another example of that.